Hey, what up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you. I'm a little bit late on here. June 15th, almost a month ago, WWE Network put up a special, Dusty Rhodes, Celebrating the Dream. And I missed it the night that it came out. I can't remember what I was doing, one thing or another. But I've really been putting this off because I did listen to some people talking about the Celebrating the Dream special about Dusty Rhodes. And a lot of people said that it was really, really sad. It was very emotional. If you had any connection to Dusty Rhodes, you really would feel it. And if you had any connection to anybody that's in NXT or, as shortly as moved up to WWE, you would really feel crushed at the end of this. And I did a review tonight of the Legendary Stories of Dusty Rhodes special that was just on the WWE Network tonight. And one of the things that I said was that it was fun to sit there and watch. And, the old timers that, were on the road with Dusty all those years and tell the stories that they remembered about Dusty and Flair, trying to one-up each other. But I really wish that it wouldn't have been sort of a live, it wasn't a podcast because it's not going to be played online or anything like that. If you don't have a WWE Network, you're not going to see this. But that podcast interview kind of feel. And I basically felt that if instead of having, 5 guys on the stage all trying to talk over to each other and interrupt each other throughout the night, if they would have done a pre-taped deal where they just had people tell their Dusty stories and then sort of edit them together, it would have been a lot better. And that's what I got with Celebrating the Dream. I want to talk about the whole thing that went down, but basically the last maybe 10 minutes is clips that, people from NXT or people that are in WWE, some of these people filmed these shots themselves on their their iPhones or their, any kind of phone and any kind of camera and submitted them themselves. Some people went to WWE or some people had them recorded at Raw or SmackDown tapings, but they were very, very good, all telling the things that are going to stick with them that Dusty taught them or things that they loved about Dusty. And that's really what I was looking for tonight when I was watching the Legendary Stories. So I was really glad that I sat down and watched this. I will tell you that this isn't a 1-hour show, but basically when it comes down to it, it is a sort of clipped up version of the Dusty Rhodes story, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. This DVD documentary set that the style of box was a good idea, but it's just beat to hell. It doesn't live up to what it should have. This came out in 2006, so this is 9 years old today. Of course, the little button that to say the clips doesn't work anymore, but it started out with a very good emotional speech from Vince McMahon, saying just basically what he thought Dusty Rhodes was and what Dusty Rhodes meant. And, when he remembers Dusty Rhodes, he remembers this charismatic, voice and this, charismatic, character that really pulled you in and, emotionally got you into whatever he was doing. He could basically get you into anything that was going on involved in wrestling. Ric Flair later even said that basically Dusty Rhodes was Stone Cold Steve Austin before Stone Cold Steve Austin. Of course, there was no Attitude Era and there was no, breaking of the rules. But, the way that Dusty would get people fired up, no matter if it was the first time they had seen him or whether if it was the last time or just, a diehard fan, you wanted to see more of Dusty, and you were willing to pay for it. He wasn't one of those, wrestlers that, people say, I love this guy. When it comes down to it, they don't buy a ticket to go to the show, because they didn't want to, put their money behind their mouth. They just wanted to say how much they love this guy. But when it came down to it, Dusty Rhodes even said it himself. It's kind of weird, and it's kind of, I don't know how they got him to do it, but, one of the last, interviews that goes on during the show is Dusty Rhodes sitting down and basically telling everyone what his long-lasting memory is going to be of himself, what he wants his sort of legacy to be. And, he was the guy that, people connected with. And one of his most famous promos, and one of the most famous promos in wrestling history, was Hard Times, basically about the American working man, being put out on the street because businesses were no longer needing the working man. They were, replacing jobs with computers. They would be cheaper, and they didn't care about the workforce. They cared about the all-American dollar at the end of it. And this is a promo that's probably most played by Dusty Rhodes. It doesn't have like the funky like a monkey voice clips that the other one does, but I mean, you play this, you just emotionally get drained into it. And Dusty Rhodes said that his legacy was that, they were an outlet for people that lived out that promo, that, they could be having the worst day of their life, or they could be down in a rut where they had lost their job. And when Dusty Rhodes and wrestling came to town, you'd go and pay for the ticket, even if it was your last dollar in your pocket, because it was an emotional release from what's going on inside of your life. And I think that's what a lot of people are chasing when they watch wrestling. They want to be able, that's one of the reasons why people said that Stone Cold Steve Austin, got going, is because it gives you something to go and, yell and scream and, get physically involved in what's going on. I mean, you don't get to jump the rail and hit the guy that's inside of the ring. You really want to. I mean, that's what wrestling's about. I mean, how many times have you gone to an indie show in your town and you boo the heels, you cheer for the baby faces? When the heel is down on the floor, he might be right in front of you, and you're yelling and screaming about how he sucks and you hate his guts, and you hope that the other guy whoops his ass. And once the show's over and you pass by the guy at the merch table, you don't really hate that guy. You thank him, for coming to your town, or you're coming to your show. And it's what wrestling is. I mean, it's just fun. On the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes special that they played here on Celebrating the Dream, it started out with him, talking about being, the son of a plumber, which is his real life. And basically, his dad pushed him to chase those dreams, do whatever you think is going to make you happy in your life. And he played baseball, he played football, and, he bounced around in the NFL, whether if it was the New England Patriots or, other, I believe he said the Giants. He played for some sort of semi-pro team, and in between waiting for a team to call him with his next job, because he just couldn't stay on the team, he got into professional wrestling. And at that point, the Miami Dolphins called, and he said, "I'm no longer a professional football player. I'm a professional wrestler." And he had changed his career, and he started moving up. One of the first ways that he caught on was in a tag team with Dick Murdoch being the Outlaw. And he took that about as far as he could do it before they finally mutually split and went their different directions. Dusty Rhodes went down to Florida, where he caught on with the Graham family, and just became one of the most hottest deals there was. And what got him onto the main stage was Vince McMahon Sr. And Graham made a handshake deal to bring Dusty up to the Garden to main event a show against superstar Billy Graham. This is probably the biggest match that Dusty Rhodes had in his career. Dusty Rhodes ended up winning the match, but not the championship, because he won this match via countout. But Dusty Rhodes, immediately, the first time in the New York market, was able to sell out the Madison Square Garden. And, the match, you go toe to toe with superstar Billy Graham, one of the greatest wrestlers of his time. From there, basically he would go on and become the NWA champion, completing the dream by beating Harley Race. From there he would go on and do the Starcades with Ric Flair, one of the biggest rivals of his career. I mean, when you think of Dusty Rhodes, you think of Ric Flair. When you think of Ric Flair, you think of Dusty Rhodes. They just go hand in hand. The rivalry, the friendship. They were basically in the same place at the same time throughout their whole career. And they were just great together. They were just awesome. from there they talk about, Dusty going to WWF, and they have the debate whether if it was Vince McMahon screwing him or Vince McMahon trying to help him. Was it a rib? Was it not a rib? Him having to wear the polka dots. Some people say that he was trying to hold Dusty down because he was the leader of the NWA. He was the booker, and by him crawling to Vince to get a job, Vince was staking his claim in Dusty Rhodes, saying that he owned him, maybe trying to make him not worth as much when it came a day when Vince wasn't going to need him anymore. But Dusty never fought in the main event. Dusty was never WWF champion, but he was high up on the card, and I would bet that he main evented house shows when he was out there on the road, because he had memorable feuds from my childhood with Macho Man Randy Savage, with $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase. Just about everything he did, he always seemed like he was one of the biggest stars that Vince had. But then again, back in the day when I was a kid, almost everybody that was on WWF TV was a huge star. There were guys that I didn't like, but there was nobody that when they come out like Bo Dallas, I just like, Bo Dallas again. It was like you wanted to see these guys. I don't know if it was because of the enhancement matches of WWF Superstars, where you would see these squash matches and knew that these guys could actually win matches, and they weren't just there to do jobs on Monday Night Raw week in and week out, and nothing that they do is ever really going to matter. I'm not sure, but there came a time when Dusty Rhodes, was fired by Vince, and he had to go back to WCW. At that point, he, moved into the office. He stopped wrestling. He probably ended his career before he should have, but he had a good office job, and he was the guy leading WCW into what looked like it was going to be the right decision. He was the guy who put the championship on, not Farouk, but Ron Simmons. It was his call to make him the first African American, I guess that's the right way to say it, first black champion, and for being a Southern promotion. I mean, that was big time guts. But Ron Simmons was a big football star from Florida State, an All-American who became a wrestler, and he beat Vader, and it was a damn memorable moment, even for when I was a kid. And Dusty would wrestle here and there, but for the most part, that was just about it until WCW closed in 2005. Dusty went to WWE and took a job working under Stephanie McMahon in the writing room, and I don't know when that stopped. I don't know if there was a time period that lapsed where he wasn't with them, but somewhere along the way he moved down to FCW NXT and became the guy that worked with all the talent down there to find the inner self of their character. And that's where all those promos came from at the end, whether it was Eva Marie, Renee Young, all of those guys, Seth Rollins. Everybody had big time thank yous for Dusty Rhodes, and I just can't believe how Dusty Rhodes it was impacted all of these wrestlers and all of these fans. He has that promo that they played on the show, just talking about how he didn't know, when he set out that he was going to, grow to be a voice of a nation, a guy that, took over and, people just fell in love with it and they wanted to get behind his movement. He just thought he was going to be a professional wrestler. And he definitely was one of the best. And sometimes he's not treated like he's there. I mean, when you think about the greatest professional wrestlers, or you're trying to build the Mount Rushmore of wrestling, nobody really names Dusty Rhodes and puts him up there. But he's definitely going to have a legacy that lasts on for years and years. And these NXT and WWE wrestlers, he was one of the best. And whether if you watch Celebrating the Dream with the interviews that are clipped in there, and or if you watch The American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, I promise you, you're going to learn something, and it's good.